To the break, we look at the deepening crisis in the Ukraine, and we go to Bloemfontein to look at sheep shearing, if you can believe that. First, here are the news headlines. The third witness in the Oscar Pistorius murder trial, Charles Jansen, is likely to return to the witness box when the trial continues this morning. Advocate Barry Roo for the defence wants him to produce notes he made after Reeva Steenkamp's death. Pistorius' apparent love for guns and alleged reckless behaviour came under scrutiny yesterday. A friend, Kevin Lerena, testified how a shot accidentally was fired by Pretorius, nearly hit him. Trade union AMCU is expected to march on the union buildings in Pretoria today. The union wants to deliver a petition to President Jacob Zuma over what it calls government's soft approach to the workers' plight. Wage talks between the union and platinum producers were called off indefinitely yesterday, dashing hopes for an end to the 6-week strike at the platinum mines. And Bafana coach Gordon Ingerson conceded that his team lost to a far better team following last night's 5-0 drubbing at the hands of 5-time world champions Brazil. Ingerson had praise for the man of the match, Neymar, after Bafana suffered its heaviest defeat, with the Barcelona forward scoring a hat-trick. Local and international media are setting up outside the High Court in Pretoria for the fourth day of Paralympian Oscar Pistorius' murder trial today. The rain had stopped overnight and electricity generators, broadcast vans and rolls of cable were set up along Madiba Street early this morning. Pistorius has pleaded not guilty to premeditated murder. He's accused of murdering his girlfriend, Reeva Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day last year. He claims he mistook her for a burglar. A restaurant at Melrose Arch in Johannesburg took centre stage with 3 witnesses giving evidence. Well, we were going to cross to Chriselda Lewis for an update outside the High Court, but apparently she's not ready yet, and we're going to recap the story that, well, the news of yesterday when a friend, Kevin Lerena, testified how a shot accidentally fired by Pistorius nearly hit him.
It was at this upmarket Johannesburg shopping centre that Pistorius, accompanied by friends, allegedly fired a gun recklessly in a packed restaurant with more than 200 people. It narrowly missed his friend Kevin Lerena, who took the stand detailing the incident.
A shot went off. A shot went off in the restaurant, and then there was just complete silence. Once the shot went off, I looked down, I was in shock. And I looked down on the floor, and exactly where my foot was stationary, there was like a hole in the floor.
Lerena testified that Pistorius apologized but wanted his friend to take the rap.
I do remember Oscar saying, please, to Darren, just say it was you. I don't want any tension around me, just say it was you.
Earlier, the state's third witness, Charles Jansen, was questioned about the striking similarities between him and his wife's statements. His wife, Michelle Berger, was the first to take the stand. The defense implied that the couple may have compared notes.
How is that? Is that a coincidence?
I don't think it's such a big coincidence.
Then the defense questioned him on the number of shots fired. The defense has demanded a copy of the notes Johnson claimed to have made after the incident. The matter stood down.
Open up! Open up!
Mangoba Mchunu, SABC News, Pretoria.
Well, Oscar Pistorius has arrived at the court already a little bit earlier today. Let's now cross to Chriselda Lewis, who's standing by outside the court to give us a little update as to what is transpiring there this morning. Good morning, Chriselda.
Good morning, Eben.
Day 4 ahead of us. I saw Oscar arriving a little bit earlier today. There's a game of cat and mouse going on, or is this just the way things are going to proceed from now on?
Well, Oscar Pistorius indeed arrived about 5 minutes ago, Eben. Well, very orderly here, nothing that we've been seeing during the first day when the trial started. The media really behaving themselves outside court, waiting for Oscar Pistorius to arrive. Shortly after, his legal team also arrives, so we're expecting proceedings to get underway at 9:30. We're also expecting today Jansen, the state's third witness, to go back onto the stand, where we're expecting the defense to continue to poke holes in his testimony, particularly looking at the similarities between his testimony and that of his wife. You will remember that Johnson's wife, Michelle Berger, was the first witness to take the stand, where the both of them gave an account of what they heard on that Valentine's Day, highlighting issues relating to screams. And also, I see there's also the media looking this way as well. I think some of the family is about to arrive, yes, towards the area there. Yes, there's some of the family arriving there. These Oscar Pistorius' family arriving there, as they've always been since the beginning of this case. He's always been flanked by his family here, giving support. And when we did see Oscar Pistorius break down on the second day, when they were giving an account or giving details about how the shots actually hit Reeva Steenkamp, that was the first time that we saw emotion coming from Oscar Pistorius, basically him breaking down. So we're expecting the family to continue to be here as well.
You talk about the family. I've seen some reports in the media. Have you seen any interaction at courtside between the family members?
Well, yeah, but just before I get there, there's more of the family arriving now. I'm going to ask our camera person just to zoom in right on there. As you can see, that's Carl Pistorius there. Also, Amy Pistorius. Carl Pistorius is Oscar's brother. Amy Pistorius is the sister, together with other family members there. You know that the both of them, since the bail application as well, have really been showing their brother support and basically comforting him when times do get difficult.
June Steenkamp, she's still there, and has there been any interaction between the two families, or haven't you seen anything?
Apologies, Eben. June Steenkamp has returned to Port Elizabeth, and we understand that she will return again here to court just towards the end of the trial. So June has returned there, and basically we have not seen any of the Steenkamp family here since the first day when they'd actually been here, when the trial started.
Quickly, just tell us what we expect today now, and just recap a little bit for us what happened yesterday with Kevin Lerena.
Well, yeah, but we're expecting Jansen, the state's third witness, to take the stand again today, where the defense will try to poke holes in his statement and highlight the similarities between his testimony and the one that his wife, Michelle Berger, gave. As I said, she was the state's first witness. And yesterday, Kevin Lerena basically giving a detailed account of what happened at that upmarket restaurant, where he says that a gun was passed under the table to Oscar Pistorius, and then a shot went off, and that was also confirmed by the owners of the upmarket restaurant, who also gave testimony, the husband and wife who actually own that restaurant. So that in particular gives details to count 2, the count that relates to the contravention of the Firearms Control Act.
I suppose Charles Jansen should prepare for an extra hot grilling this morning from Barry Roo, but also, what's the sense that you get from other media, local and international?
Well, the story is still of international interest, Eben, and I really don't expect it to die down. But the sense that we're also getting from some of the other media houses, particularly in Europe, is that there are basically 2 competing stories here that people are really interested in. The focus is very much on the crisis in Ukraine, and then basically the second biggest story that we're looking at worldwide is the story relating to Oscar Pistorius. So if you watch the headlines across all television networks, you'd see that the 2 stories are basically competing for space, because people are very interested to know what's happening in Ukraine and how the case relating to Oscar Pistorius continues.
Chriselda Lewis, thank you very much this morning. We'll be back a little bit later. I understand you've got to go into the course that starts at 9:30 this morning.
That's correct.
Thank you, Chriselda. That's Chriselda Lewis, once again keeping us updated as to what's happening in the court. But what are you thinking? What are your thoughts? Of course, everybody has an opinion on this case. Everyone has well, written down, given their opinion on social media. Let's have a look at some of the thoughts coming out. Clifford Sitlezana says, Oscar awards, Oscar trial, Oscar scoring against Bafana. Hashtag Oscar. Love it, Clifford. Keep it coming. That's a fantastic comment there. Of course, is it Aislinn Lang says, is Mr. Roo feeling the strain already on day 3 of the trial? Just called Mr. Jansen, Mr. Pistorius. Yes, my dear, this will be a very, very taxing trial. There is no doubt about it. Dumisani Klope says, political parties need to rethink their communication strategies given that Oscar Pistorius' trial consumes the bulk of the media space. And then Dale Packham says, looks like it will carry on raining in Josie until we hear Oscar scream like a girl. Dale, the rain has stopped, my friend. And, Oscar his lawyer has admitted that he screams like a woman, but that must still be tested in a court of law when the experts come out at some stage later in this trial. Now, the Oscar trial has been the topic of the week and probably will be of the month and of the year. People have been debating it from all possible angles, with a 24-hour channel, local and international media devoted to every detail of the case. Many have said that Pistorius, the celebrity, is getting an unfair advantage, unlike other murder cases involving ordinary South Africans. Now, to talk to us in studio today about this is Nushin Erfani Gadimi. Am I right? Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Firstly, I think you heard what I just said about preferential treatment, and there's a lot of talk about that, not just on social media, but in the media as well. What's your opinion on that, being the expert?
We can see that everyone has put their best foot forward in this case.
Yeah.
And, the state, the forensics, the police have tried, everyone, the media, it's been, as you can see, a frenzy. This is a very particular case with a celebrity. But I think what we need to remind ourselves is that there is a divide between those who have money and those who don't. And that's perhaps where the inequality comes in. Is if you can afford your lawyers, is if you can afford to bring in your own forensic expert, you are a very small minority in this country. Most people can't even afford their bail. And the amount set, in his case, was 1 million.
Yeah.
And for some people, it's 1,000 rands, and they can't afford that, and
Yeah.
they spend time behind bars.
How does the public interest in this case has been immense? How do you see this having any effect on this case?
I think it's a good thing. I think public interest is always a good thing. We need to encourage people to be interested in the law and in how our judicial system works, how our criminal justice system works, because that's the only way it's going to get better. And so, it is a bit of a spectacle and it is a bit of a circus, but in the end we're all talking about issues that matter. Around the coffee table, we're all talking about gender violence, we're all talking about, so what is bail, and these kinds of conversations are good.
Is it true that 1/3 of South Africa's prison population, and I'm reading it here, are in remand detention and awaiting trial?
That's correct.
What does that mean?
So that's about 45,000 people at the moment. And that means that they have been charged with something, they've been brought before a magistrate. Their trial is either to start or is continuing. It hasn't finished. So they are still innocent before the law. Nobody said that they're guilty of what they've been accused of. And unfortunately, if you think about 45,000 innocent people are still behind bars.
Behind bars,
that's a lot of people.
How do you remedy this kind of thing in a country like ours?
On its own, remand is actually not a bad thing. It's there for people who might pose a threat, who shouldn't get bail.
Yeah.
Right? But as I mentioned earlier, people who can't afford bail are also there. So that's a crime of poverty. Another crime of poverty is the fact that if you haven't been given bail because you can't verify your address.
Yeah.
If you're in an informal settlement, that's very difficult.
Yeah.
So all of these issues we need to look at. And we need to make sure that when police officers arrest someone, they've done their work ahead of time. the investigation is finished and the docket is complete before they arrest someone, because often we see that there are postponements in the trial because the investigation needs to continue, and that's just that's not good enough.
Finally, I want to ask you, what are some of the other real challenges that the South African justice system face, and how do you see this playing out with the justice system really being on trial as well, I suppose?
Well, I mean, we've seen already, it's only been a few days, but we've already had discussions about the quality of interpretation. That really affects a lot of people, and that's a crucial discussion that we should continue to have.
Yeah.
We've talked about, we've seen already last year where during the bail application we had a discussion about bail, and that's a really important one that we need to have.
Yeah.
And again, we are going to be seeing forensics under the spotlight, and that is something that we need to really beef up in this country.
They're already talking about the state bungling the forensics case. I think a lot of people are looking forward to see what's going to come out of there. Thank you very much for joining us, Noshin Irfani Gadimi, who's the project coordinator for the Wits Justice Project. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you.
This morning, rather, after a short break, while we look at the deepening crisis in the Ukraine, and we go to Bloemfontein to talk about sheep shearing. Weird. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
Capitec Bank is asking why to simplify banking. Do you know what your bank costs are?
I don't know, but I know it's too much.
65 rand?
Between 200 and 250.
I don't, but I know it's too much.
It's too much, yeah.
Why don't you switch banks?
Switch!
Yeah, way too much of a hassle, my man.
We help 100,000 people open accounts at Capitec Bank every month. If you haven't joined us yet, ask why.
Ask why.
They found that Cape Town is the best run metro in the whole of the country.
What steps will you take to protect communities from the kind of police brutality?
When I am the mayor, I won't take the £1 million salary.
You guys all look the same. None of you should be trusted.
Catch the election debates on SAFM, SABC News Channel and SABC One, Sundays at 6 p.m.
Welcome back. You with Newsroom on SABC News. Western and Russian leaders headed into a day of diplomatic wrangling over the Ukraine crisis yesterday, a day after US President Barack Obama warned Moscow that it was not fooling anybody over its role in the Crimea. US Secretary of State John Kerry met with his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov for the first time since Ukraine's Moscow-backed President Viktor Yanukovych was ousted after 3 months of pro-European Union protests which left nearly 100 dead. Pro-Russian forces have taken the de facto control of the Crimea, blocking Ukrainian troops in their barracks in the most serious standoff between the West and Russia since the Cold War. Now, to shed some more light on the matter, which is really on a knife edge, we are joined by a specialist in political conflict resolution, Professor Dirk Kotzer from UNISA. Good morning, Professor, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Professor, just tell us, it's a very serious situation, we understand, but how did we get to this so quickly?
Well, it started in November last year when the ousted president then was supposed to approve an agreement with the European Union, and he decided not to do it. It was, I think most people believe it was under pressure from President Putin, from Russia, that he didn't do it. The main background and reason for that is the fact that that Russians under President Putin tries to a large extent to to re-establish the old Russian Empire, or in the form of a customs union for the whole of the former Soviet Union, and it tries to prevent any European influence in it. We saw it in 2008 in Georgia, where two of the regions within Georgia also wanted to get to separate from Georgia because Georgia was too close to the Europeans, and now we see a repetition of it. So it is about a big issue, and that is about, in a sense, who has the most influence in the areas of the old Soviet Union, Russia or the European Union.
What does this mean for the bigger world's political sphere, given that, the movements we've seen within the G8 as well?
Well, I think what we have seen now in the last number of days or week is that the former big superpowers have come together in this situation, and that means that Russia, part of the old former Soviet Union, and the US. And in between them is the European Union. So although it is about a very specific aspect of the geopolitics of the former Soviet Union, it involves now the big powers of the world. It doesn't include China and the East, but most of the former Eastern Bloc, as well as Western Europe, and the United States. So, although it looks like there's high tension there at the moment, it does involve some aspects of the old Cold War, actually.
I wanted to talk to you about BRICS and about our relationship with Russia, and then if you can explain to us how this would affect it. Does our silence mean that we're supporting Russia in this instance?
Well, at this stage, the relationship between South Africa and Russia is not a very close one. And I think what the dilemma that South Africa is experiencing at the moment with respect to the Ukraine is quite similar to that of Syria, where Russia is also directly involved in, and South Africa tried to keep, to a large extent, out of the main issues within Syria and now as well as Ukraine. The South Africa's association with Russia within BRICS is one aspect of it, but we've seen it, for example, in the climate change talks, that Russia excused itself from BRICS. So in that sense, BRICS is not a very tightly integrated formation, and therefore that because of this, that Russia expects South Africa to support it under all circumstances. So in this case, I think South Africa tries to keep out of the situation to a large extent. It's not directly within the influence sphere of South Africa, and it's only going to complicate South Africa's relations within BRICS if it takes a particular standpoint.
Finally, sir, do you expect this standoff to escalate into a full-blown conflict in the Crimea in the days and weeks to come?
No, I don't think so. We've seen on Tuesday President Putin at a press conference in which he tried to downplay the situation. He also gave instructions to the Russian army to end their operations and training programs on the border with Ukraine. I think the pressure that's been put on him by the European Union and especially by President Obama gives him a good understanding that this cannot escalate. His experience in 2008 in Georgia, I think, was another reason why he won't take more the military option in this situation. And ultimately, I think, so long as the European Union doesn't directly become involved and trying to influence the situation too much and try to sway it in the direction of the European Union, I think President Putin is not going to take any military action, but certainly will keep pressure on the political leadership in Ukraine.
Thank you very much for joining us today and giving us an insight into what's happening in the Ukraine. That is Professor Dirk Kotze from UNISA. Now, he is a specialist in political conflict resolution. Now we move on to sheep shearing. He started as a part-time job, developed into a full-time career, and now into a sport. And South Africans have dominated the world rankings for the past 18 years, producing multiple world champions. This week, the country's very best visited Bloemfontein schools to promote what they do. To tell us more is a specialist correspondent in Bloemfontein, Richard Newton. Good morning, Richard. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben.
Richard, I always thought Australia were the world champs at sheep shearing, but it seems it's something else that they do with sheep, isn't it?
Well, I tell you what, Eben, sheep shearing is an intense sport. You know, you're talking about some global issues here. I think a number of conflicts in the world could be sorted out by a winner-takes-all once-off sheep shearing competition. And we have dominated the world, especially in hand shear, for the last 18 years. Machine shear, when we're shearing in the southern hemisphere with merino sheep, we do incredibly well. A bit tougher when we're using the shearing the northern hemisphere sheep. But Eben, let me tell you, I've attended a world championship sheep shearing competition, and it really is intense. It really is exciting. It really is a spectator sport, and a lot of people have laughed when I've said that. But let me tell you, it's exciting. It's down to the wire, and we as South Africans are really good at it.
How does the competition work as a sport? Is it the one who gets all the wool off the fastest, or are there other technical points that we don't understand?
Well, you basically have two categories. You have hand shear and machine shear, which you're seeing there, the machine shear. And, of course, it's time. You get penalized. Every 20 seconds you get a penalty point for the time you take. You get a penalty point if you cut the sheep. You get a penalty point if you double cut the wool. And it's the quality of the wool and the state of the sheep and the time. And basically you get penalized, and the person with the least points at the end of the particular event wins that particular event. And it's amazing stuff, because there are so many technical aspects. We were talking yesterday to some of the shearers, and on a given day, a hand shearer will clip 36,000 times when he physically clips that hand shear.
Wow.
And that's about 150 sheep that he's shorn on one particular day. You can get severely injured, believe it or not, in this. You have to be very fit. You're holding a 40, 45 kilogram sheep who's kicking and moving around. You need to calm him down. You need to cut. And it's an intense sport. As you said correctly in the intro, it started off as a part-time job. Now it's a career. A lot of these shearers actually travel around the world and shear for a living. And the sport there's 33 countries that take part. The World Championships coming up in Ireland in May, and I'm sure South Africa is going to do brilliantly again, as they always have been doing.
Just quickly tell us about the visits to schools this week there in your neck of the woods, and then also the response from the kids. I'm sure it must be something completely outside of the wheelhouse that they're used to.
Well, the kids were absolutely fascinated. Yeah, but we spent more time looking at the faces of the kids than we did at the actual shearing, because you can see half the kids are looking absolutely shocked, feeling terribly sorry for the poor sheep. And every time the wool goes off, they're going, ooh, as if it's been injured. And other kids just cheering on. I mean, what the guys who are going around doing these demonstrations do, they have a race between the hand shearer and the machine shearer. And the kids get to choose who they think is going to win, and they cheer the shearer on. And all the time it's explained what the job entails and what the sport entails. And let me tell you, I think in Bloemfontein this week, they've probably recruited about 1,000 potential sheep shearers who want to do it as a career, and probably even more who want to do it as a sport.
Thank you very much, Richard Newton. That's our correspondent in Bloemfontein, Richard Newton, giving us all about sheep shearing. I'm happy with sheep shearing as long as it doesn't escalate into other things with sheep, as sometimes happens. Let's take a quick look at what you are talking about again on social media. Of course, it's very much Ukraine. And Ralph Mateja, Ralph Mateja is a political analyst that often joins us here on this very show. Russia is having a picnic in the Crimea. The US has squandered so-called international cooperation a long time ago. The world watches, indeed the world watches, as our professor said a little bit earlier. Sia the Brand says Putin and this oak over here should be friends. 16,000 or 16,000 Russian troops in the Crimea, but Putin denies that they are there. Now, there's a lot of cloak and dagger going on at the moment. Seize Bruggemans, or Kies Bruggemans. This Crimea Russia thing looks more and more like Syria 2013. We are going to bomb you back to the Stone Age unless, perhaps not. That is Kies Bruggemans. And there we have Crimea River is what Vladimir Putin says. That's from our very own Anton Meyer, who's the producer on this. So no need for political analysis. This picture says it all. We are coming to invade your country. Crimea River. That is Vladimir Putin. That's his little bit, of course, the strong man of Russian politics, Vladimir Putin. Well, don't go away. After the break, we're going to go to the court. where Charles Jansen, I can promise you, can expect the grilling of his life from Senior Counsel Barry Roux in the North Gauteng High Court. This is Newsroom. Don't go away.
How do you think he actually works?
Get fully installed fixed-line broadband with modem and turn your home into a Wi-Fi hotspot. That's 5 gigs data plus 5 gigs promo data for just $3.99, including ADSL and line rental. Plus, you'll also get a free 3G dongle with 200 megabytes mobile data a month and loads more benefits for your new connected home. Rethink fixed broadband. Call, click, go to a Telkom store.
This is the program in which we showcase different aspects of government.
The Northern Cape is a land of many diverse cultures, of frontier history and brave missionaries. It also has countless challenges.
Poverty is high in our province. You feed children that are in lower grades, but the children coming from the same family in higher grades.
More opportunities are being created each year to benefit all in the region.
This is a nation at work.
Yeah, welcome back. You're still in Newsroom here on SABC News. Let's just take a quick look at the top stories on our platform right now. The third witness in the Oscar Pistorius murder trial, Charles Jansen, is likely to return to the witness box when the trial continues this morning. Advocate Barry Roux for the defence wants him to produce notes he made after Reeva Steenkamp's death. Pistorius' apparent love for guns and alleged reckless behaviour came under scrutiny yesterday. A friend, Kevin Larina, testified how a shot accidentally fired by Pistorius nearly hit him. The trade union AMCU is expected to march on the union buildings in Pretoria today. The union wants to deliver a petition to President Jacob Zuma over what it calls government's soft approach on the workers' plight. Wage talks between the union and platinum producers were called off indefinitely yesterday, dashing hopes for an end to the 6-week strike at the platinum mines. And Bafana coach Gordon Egerton conceded that his team lost to a far better team following last night's 5-0 drubbing at the hands of 5-time world champions Brazil. Egerton had praise for man of the match Neymar after Bafana suffered its heaviest defeat, with the Barcelona forward scoring a hat-trick. Well, time now for us to cross to the capital of South Africa, where the North Gauteng High Court is in sitting today. On the stand, we expect the third witness, Charles Jansen, and he'll be cross-examined by Barry Roux for the defence. It should be very interesting. Let's go into the court.
It is that first part of your sentence. My wife